Okay, so today we'll be talking about my turning points that I went through in my education. So, as I was doing this, I was talking with my parents, and we decided that we had around this number of turning points in my life that were evident in my educational career. So, you start off, we're in third grade. Um, This is a time where STAR was introduced for the first time, and I almost failed it. Okay, so my elementary school that I was in, they really didn't like the fact that a lot of their numbers were failing. So from fifth grade or from third grade on, I was put in extra reading classes every single day after school. Um, so it was after school and during the day. I would get pulled away just for some extra help reading passages and everything. And they really did their best with trying to help us like feel acclimated into it. But we really did feel like we were getting pulled away from the rest of the class. And personally, this was like the first time I was separated from my sister. This was the year that she got tested for GT, and so it was really impactful to see, like, oh, I'm not doing so well, and she's exceeding and getting um, picked for GT. So I connected this to Piaget's cognitive development because I was still part of the concrete operational stage. I would say that I aligned perfectly with this stage at this point in time because I was still learning, and I was beginning to make extra connections with the world through my tutoring experiences. At this time in my life, I was still working on the what do I know, which was part of my schema. And during this time, I had also many contributors to social and emotional growth and not many distractors. So during this time, I had a pretty positive background. So my next um, point would be my transition between fifth and sixth grade. So during this time, I was still really struggling with trying to grasp study habits, school, with friends and volleyball, just all of that. So over the summer between fifth and sixth grade, my mom decided that I was going to have my fifth grade teacher tutor me every single day of the summer, so I could learn fast pace and good study habits. But again, it made me separated from my sister. Also, during this time, I did not realize from sixth grade to senior year, my mom had enrolled me in a private school without telling me because she was worried that I wouldn't succeed in a public school. So I connected this again. I began comparing myself to my sister, which affected my social and emotional growth. Due to my family, we were still super close, and I didn't like want anything to drive us apart at this time. And I was still trying to figure out how I wanted and liked to be taught. And I had a very fixed mindset because all I would think was, oh, I'm not good enough for this. I can't do this. And during this time, I would begin to lash out at my parents because I was falling behind, or so I thought I was. So, transitioning into eighth grade, I started doing dual sports, which was a huge challenge for me because doing volleyball and basketball all year round was a lot. Um, but I tried out for the basketball team in eighth grade, and I made the B team. And seventh grade, I made the C team. So I was really excited to be on the B team. But my dad sat me down and told me that I could not participate in basketball because of my history grade, because it wasn't up to par and it wasn't where it should be if I'm trying to play another sport, especially a sport that's not truly like my passion. So I went back to my seventh grade history teacher, and again was back in tutoring sessions, just teaching me how to read a textbook, giving me little techniques on how to make sticky notes and how to take notes and everything. And during this time, volleyball became more consistent. So as I was saying earlier, like basketball was my fun sport that I didn't really focus on, but volleyball was beginning to be 3 times a week at this point. So I again was having a fixed mindset, being put back into tutoring again. I just thought I would never improve. But through this and starting basketball and starting volleyball, I did realize that I was a hands-on kinesthetic learner. Um, but I didn't want to do much problem solving for myself, and I would just get frustrated when things didn't work out. So I couldn't see the real picture or the full picture at this point, and I just kept getting frustrated with everything. So, freshman year happens. So, what happened in my freshman year was Hurricane Harvey. Okay, everybody thought Hurricane Harvey was just going to be a little bit of rain, and it ended up hitting us for about 2 weeks straight. Everyone in my surrounding neighborhoods flooded. My family was lucky enough to not flood, but it was my freshman year. And so it was a huge adjustment coming back from a disaster and trying to build each other up. And a lot of people lost all of their resources. So it was interesting to see the school rebuild itself as well. And in this point, I had to learn a balance between volleyball and school because freshman year was a lot. Transitioning into volleyball was a lot more than the amount that I needed to do for junior high. I was the captain of the team, I was the MVP of the team. I was like super involved in the team and everything that it had to offer. And then also, freshman year, I got baptized. That's the third picture that you saw right here. Um, but I got baptized, and that was a really cool experience because I did get to share that time with my two sisters, and we got to go through that time together, and it was a really sweet moment as a family. So I connected this back to having to keep a positive mindset towards my teachers, my family, my coaches, because the seasons got cut short, resources were taken away, and many things changed after the hurricane hit. um, Again, like I said earlier, I was on the freshman volleyball team. I was captain and MVP, so my social growth was on fire because I felt needed. And getting baptized also increased my social and emotional and spiritual growth at this point. Okay, going into sophomore year. Sophomore year was a great year in regards to me and my family, but it was also one of my hardest years in regards to what I felt with friends. Um, Sophomore year, if you could see this, the picture, the third picture on there, it says Seven Lakes Volleyball plays for number 80. Um, Sophomore year, my best friend passed away in an ATV accident. It was very sudden. Um, he was perfectly healthy, and then, of course, he was gone. And he was one of those people who impacted everyone. So it not only impacted me and my circle around me, it impacted the entire school. So you could really see throughout that year, all of us coming together and all of us working and all of us grieving all together in regards to having the guidance counselors there. We had memorial services. We would pray at the football games. It was just a really cool change of pace. But I also, during this year, I backed away from everything. It was actually a year to the date that he passed away that I got baptized. And so it was really hard because like my family was celebrating 1 year of being baptized, and then we get a call from his mom saying that all of this happened, and it was kind of just a shock to all of us. And I backed away from family at this point. I backed away from church. I didn't want to go anymore because I would think to God, why would you put me in a situation where now I'm hurting when you know I've been struggling and you're just adding one more thing on to my life? So I connected this with saying that volleyball was still going great. I made JV at this point. I continued my captain and MVP role. So again, my social aspect um, had a lot of growth and was great. But when Cooper had died, my world broke. I stopped playing volleyball. I stopped going to church. I hated my family. I became to have a very fixed mindset again. I had no spiritual or social or emotional growth and more of a decline during this time. So now we transition into COVID. So you see me in the middle there. I am working out in my office at home because that was the only free space that I had, and we still had to complete workouts for volleyball all the time. So everything transitioned to online, which I thought was going to be really good for me, but I found out that that year I was a very big people person and I missed my people. Um, I had just during COVID, I got out of a relationship that I was in for 2.5 years, and I just realized that it was getting to a toxic time in my life, but it also like that really hurt me. I overworked myself as well because I started comparing myself to the people online because I was online way more. So I pretty much almost worked myself into a very, very unhealthy habit. I lost 35 pounds when I did not need to. Um, and I stopped eating. I stopped looking at myself with positivity. I just kept thinking, oh, I can do better. And my train of thought was terrible during this time. So I just continued to want to go back to school, which was super impressive for me because I liked school, but I would never choose school to be over anything. Um, so I connected it as distractors took over my life. I got consumed with looking like others, and I brought myself into a terrible state. I was overwhelmed by how much change was happening around me, and I couldn't control it because there were many things during this time that were out of my control. Um, I didn't work towards any of my connections during this time because I wasn't allowed to leave the house. My parents were really afraid of COVID because my dad is on the more unhealthy side, and so we just didn't know. We were too scared to do anything. So, transitioning into my senior year, things are looking a little bit more normal. Um, and so I was really excited to go back to school and have all my friends back there. So we transitioned out of the COVID era a little bit with still enforced regulations. I decided to come to DBU to play volleyball. But after that, um, during my school season and my club season, I lost my DBU scholarship due to an injury. That injury was a 6-month process, and I tried to keep my scholarship here, but the coach decided that it wasn't going to be a good idea. And also during this senior year, both of my grandparents on my dad's side passed away due to COVID. Um, and so it was just really awakening to see, like, oh, it may not affect me, but it did affect the older people in my family. And like I could see that through my parents. They were devastated because we couldn't go and see them. So connections. I had a hard emotional year, lots of loss, but lots of gain, and learning how to balance my growth with all of my setbacks. So that's just social emotional growth the whole time. All right. So my transition into college. I took extra prep classes again just because I was scared of the transition. I knew that my high school was going to prepare us really well for it. I just was still hesitant towards it. I also had to choose which friendships were going to last for me throughout the time being because I you just don't know. Like you leave and you don't know who's going to follow you. And I also hung out with family as much as possible because my sister and I are would be officially separating because she went to OU this year or our freshman year. So many things impacted my affective development with my contributors and my distractors in my life. All right, now we're in college. College, I still had to end many relationships, but I gained many friendships through activities like my sorority. I learned how to balance many jobs, that being my volleyball job, my education job, and also nannying on the side. That took a lot, and I could tell that I was running myself a little ragged in some of those situations, and I had to learn like to step back and to look at it from someone else's perspective and see how it's impacting me. Um, so I connected this by saying I still have so many challenges, but God is good and social emotional growth is on fire. We love adulting. So, thank you for taking the time to watch my video and to get to know me and my turning points.